The sun was setting as Emma stood at the edge of the sidewalk, staring at the small house before her. She felt a mixture of excitement and fear bubbling inside her. She had never met anyone from the internet before, but this was different. He seemed nice. His messages were sweet, and she thought he might be the one. She had told her friends about him, but deep down, a voice whispered that she should be cautious. Everything will be fine, she told herself, taking a deep breath. Emma had met Alex online. They had chatted for months, and his words always made her smile. He was kind, funny, and seemed to understand her better than anyone else. He had invited her to visit, and after days of thinking about it, she decided to go. She packed a small bag, put on her favorite dress, and drove to his house, far away from the busy streets she was used to. But now, standing in front of his door, something felt strange. The house was quiet. Too quiet. She knocked on the door, her heart pounding in her chest. After a moment, the door creaked open. A man stood in the doorway, but he didn't look like the Alex she had talked to. This man was older, his eyes dark and intense. He smiled, but it didn't feel warm. Emma froze. "Are you Emma?" the man asked in a deep voice. "Yes," she replied, her voice trembling. "Is Alex here?" The man nodded slowly, stepping aside to let her in. Emma hesitated but stepped inside anyway, telling herself it was too late to turn back now. She had come this far. The house was dark, with only a few dim lights flickering in the corners. It smelled faintly of old wood and dust. She couldn't see much, but she could hear the creaking of the floorboards under her feet as she followed the man through a narrow hallway. "Alex is upstairs," he said, his voice strangely soft. Emma didn't like the way he said it. It didn't sound reassuring. Her mind raced. Could this be a trap? What if this was a mistake? But she pushed those thoughts aside. She had come to meet Alex, and that's what she would do. The man stopped at the bottom of a staircase and turned to her. "Go ahead," he said with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Alex is waiting for you." Emma nodded, feeling her heart beat faster. She took a step toward the stairs. As she climbed, she heard a strange sound, like someone moving quickly, whispering, or maybe even breathing heavily. The hairs on the back of her neck stood up. She felt like she was being watched. At the top of the stairs, she hesitated. The door to the bedroom was cracked open, and a light flickered from within. She couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong, but her curiosity got the best of her. She pushed the door open. Inside, the room was dark except for a small lamp beside the bed. There, lying on the bed, was a man. He didn't look like the Alex she had seen in his pictures. His face was pale, and his eyes were closed. He was motionless. "Alex," Emma whispered, stepping closer. Suddenly, the man's eyes shot open. They weren't kind or friendly. They were cold, full of something Emma couldn't describe. "Who are you?" he hissed. Emma stepped back, her heart racing. This wasn't Alex. This wasn't the man she had been talking to. This was a stranger. "Where's Alex?" she demanded, her voice shaking. The man on the bed slowly sat up, his eyes locked onto hers. "You shouldn't have come," he said, his voice low and menacing. Before Emma could react, she heard footsteps behind her. She spun around to find the man from the door standing there, his eyes now full of malice. "Didn't I warn you?" he sneered, stepping into the room. "You should have never trusted him. But now, you're here. And there's no way out." Emma's stomach churned with fear. She backed away, but the door slammed shut behind her. She was trapped. The two men took slow steps toward her, and she felt the panic rising in her chest. She had made a mistake. She had trusted the wrong person. Her mind raced for a way out, but she was alone, surrounded by strangers, and she had no idea who these men were or what they wanted from her. Just then, Emma heard a loud noise downstairs. It was the sound of a door being kicked open, followed by shouts. The two men turned, their attention momentarily diverted. Emma knew this was her chance. She ran toward the window, her heart pounding in her chest. She grabbed the latch and pulled. The window was stuck, but with one hard tug, it opened just enough for her to squeeze through. She didn't stop to look back. She jumped out of the window, landing hard on the grass below. She didn't care about the pain, she just ran, faster than she had ever run before. Her heart was in her throat, and the sound of footsteps behind her made her push herself even harder. As she reached the road, a car screeched to a halt beside her. It was a police car. "Get in," the officer shouted, and Emma didn't hesitate. She jumped into the car, the door slamming behind her as the officer sped away. She looked back at the house, her heart still racing. She was safe. But she would never forget what happened. She had learned the hard way that not everything, and everyone, is as they seem. From that day forward, Emma knew that no matter how sweet someone's words might be, it was never worth risking her safety for the sake of a promise. The world was full of strangers, and not all of them could be trusted. As the police car drove away, Emma sat in the back, trembling. The officer kept his eyes on the road, his grip firm on the wheel, but his voice was calm as he spoke to her. "You're safe now. Can you tell me what happened?" he asked. Emma swallowed hard, still trying to wrap her mind around everything. I thought I was meeting someone nice," she began, her voice shaky. "We talked for months online. He seemed so kind. But when I got there, it wasn't him. It was someone else." The officer nodded, his face serious. "What did this man look like? And the one upstairs?" "I don't know," Emma said, her voice catching. "The man in the bedroom, he was so pale, like he hadn't slept in days. His eyes were strange. But the one downstairs, he looked normal at first. He smiled, but it didn't feel right." The officer frowned, glancing at her through the rearview mirror. "Do you know if anyone else is there? Any other people?" Emma's mind raced. "I don't know. I didn't see anyone else. But there's something wasn't right in that house. It was too quiet. And when I was upstairs, it felt like someone was watching me. I don't know how to explain it." The officer didn't say anything for a moment, but Emma could see the wheels turning in his mind. They sped through the quiet streets, the siren cutting through the night air, until they reached the nearest police station. As soon as they arrived, the officer led Emma inside, where another officer greeted them. "Is she all right?" the second officer asked, eyeing Emma with concern. "She's shaken up, but she's safe now," the first officer replied. "We need to get a statement from her. Can you get someone to check out the house she was at?" The second officer nodded, making a quick call. Emma tried to steady her breath, but her heart was still pounding in her chest. She felt a knot in her stomach, wondering what would happen next. What if those men were still out there? What if they had other victims? A few minutes later, the officers came back, their faces grim. "We've sent a team to check the house," the second officer said. "You're not the first person to report strange things happening there." Emma blinked, confused. "What do you mean? You've had other reports?" "Yes," the officer said, "a couple of people reported similar experiences, but they didn't get away like you did. They disappeared." Emma's heart skipped a beat. "Disappear? Like, forever?" The officer's face grew serious. "We don't know. The house you were at has been linked to other disappearances. We're investigating it, but it's been hard to get solid proof. Whoever's behind it, they're very good at hiding their tracks." The words sent a chill through Emma's bones. She had barely escaped, but now it was clear that this was no ordinary house or simple misunderstanding. There was something far more sinister happening, and she had just barely slipped through their fingers. "Are you sure you're all right?" the officer asked again, his voice softer now. Emma nodded, though her mind was still reeling from everything she had just learned. "I don't know. I need to understand. What kind of people would do something like this?" The officer hesitated before speaking. "People who are hiding something. People who don't care about others. We think the man you met online may have been using a fake identity to lure people in, and those men, well, they're part of something darker." Emma shuddered. The thought that there were people out there like that, people who took advantage of others' trust, made her sick to her stomach. She thought about Alex, the real Alex, and wondered if he even existed. Was he just a lie? Or had he fallen victim to something much more dangerous? "I can't believe this is real," she whispered to herself. "We'll find out who's behind this," the officer reassured her. "You did the right thing coming to us. Now we'll make sure no one else falls into the same trap." The officer spent the next several hours taking Emma's statement, but she couldn't shake the feeling of unease. She kept picturing the dark house, the strange man on the bed, and the sinister smile of the man downstairs. There was something about the way they spoke, the way they moved, that felt so wrong. When Emma finally left the police station, the sun had begun to rise. The events of the night felt like a nightmare, but she knew it wasn't over yet. Those men were still out there. They hadn't given up. Back at her apartment, Emma couldn't sleep. She sat at her desk, staring at her phone, her mind racing. She wanted to reach out to her friends, tell them everything, but part of her felt ashamed. How could she have been so blind? How could she have trusted someone she'd never met? Her phone buzzed, pulling her out of her thoughts. It was a message. "Hey Emma, it's me, Alex." Her heart skipped a beat. Could it really be him? Was this some kind of sick joke? Emma opened the message, her fingers trembling. "I'm so sorry. I should have told you the truth. I'm not who you think I am. They're coming for you. Get out of there, now." The message sent a wave of panic through Emma. She stared at the screen, unable to process what she had just read. Who was Alex? Was he a part of this, or had he been another victim like her? She grabbed her bag and ran out of the apartment. She needed answers. She couldn't trust anyone anymore, but she couldn't shake the feeling that the truth was out there. And no matter what it took, she was going to find it. Emma's heart raced as she bolted from her apartment, her mind spinning in a whirlwind of fear and confusion. Who was Alex? Was he involved with those men in the house? Or was he just another victim, trying to warn her before it was too late? She couldn't stay there any longer. She didn't feel safe, not in her apartment, not anywhere. She needed to get answers, but she didn't know who to trust anymore. The message on her phone made her feel like she was standing on the edge of a cliff, looking down into a vast unknown. There was danger all around her, and she didn't know where to run. Emma ran down the street, her feet pounding against the pavement. She didn't know where she was going, but she knew she had to keep moving. As she turned the corner, she saw a police car parked near a coffee shop. A surge of relief washed over her, and she hurried toward it. "Officer," she called out as she approached the car. The officer inside looked up, surprised to see her. "Emma, what are you doing here?" he asked, stepping out of the car. "I got a message from Alex," she said breathlessly. "He said they're coming for me. He said I need to get out of here. Please, I need help." The officer's face turned serious. "You did the right thing by coming to us. We've been investigating the house you went to, and we've discovered something disturbing." There's a group of people involved in luring victims, and they're part of something much bigger than we thought. Emma's stomach dropped. What do you mean? Who are they? They call themselves the Circle, the officer explained. They prey on vulnerable people, using fake identities to lure them in. They've been operating for years, and they're dangerous. We believe Alex might be a victim too, but right now, we need to focus on keeping you safe. Emma felt a chill run through her. So, I'm not the only one they've hurt. No, the officer said, his expression hardening. But you're the first one to get away. You're our key to stopping them. Emma's mind raced. She wanted to know everything, she needed to understand how it all worked. But at the same time, she felt overwhelmed, like she was drowning in a sea of questions with no answers. Where is Alex? She asked, her voice trembling. Is he okay? We are still trying to track him down, the officer said. But right now, we have to make sure you're safe. We are taking you to a secure location. Emma didn't argue. She followed the officer to the car, her mind still spinning with the discovery of the Circle. She couldn't shake the thought of Alex. Was he really trying to help her, or was he part of their plan all along? As the car drove away, Emma couldn't help but feel a sense of guilt. She had been so naive, so trusting. She had let her guard down, thinking she had found someone who understood her, someone who cared. But now, all of that seemed like a lie. She couldn't believe she had almost fallen into their trap. The officer took her to a safe house, a quiet, secure building far from her apartment. It was dark when they arrived, and Emma felt exhausted from everything she had gone through. She had been through so much in such a short time, and yet, it didn't feel like it was over. She couldn't rest until she knew the truth about Alex and the Circle. Over the next few days, Emma stayed in the safe house, her life on hold as she waited for more information. The police were working tirelessly to track down the Circle, and Emma's statement helped them piece together more clues. They were close, but the danger wasn't over yet. One evening, just as Emma was starting to feel the weight of the situation pressing down on her, she received another message from Alex. I'm okay, it said. I've been trying to escape. The Circle, they are watching me. I'm so sorry. I didn't mean for you to get involved. Please, stay safe. I'll find you when I can. I promise. Emma's heart fluttered with relief and confusion. Could Alex truly be innocent? Or was he still lying to her? The next morning, the police made a breakthrough. They had tracked down the main members of the Circle and arrested several of them. They had discovered hidden rooms, secret files, and evidence that proved this group had been operating for years. The officers confirmed that Alex had been part of their operation, but he had also been trying to escape their control. Alex was one of their victims, the officer explained. He's been trying to get away from them for a long time. He reached out to you because he trusted you. He wanted to warn you, but he didn't know how. The Circle used him, and now he's under protection too. Emma felt a weight lift off her chest. Alex wasn't the monster she had feared he was. He had been a victim, just like her. A few weeks later, Emma received a call. It was Alex. Hey, Emma, he said softly. I'm free. I'm not fully out of the woods yet, but I'm safe. I'm sorry for everything. You didn't deserve any of it. Tears filled Emma's eyes as she listened to his voice. I'm just glad you're okay. I was so scared, Alex. I know, he said. But we both made it out. And I won't let anything happen to you again. I owe you that. Emma smiled softly, feeling a sense of peace she hadn't felt in weeks. She had been through a terrifying ordeal, but in the end, she had learned something important. Trust had to be earned, not given away blindly. And sometimes, the truth wasn't what you expected, but it was always worth finding. From that moment on, Emma promised herself she would never let fear control her life again. She had survived, and now, she was stronger than ever. And as for Alex, well, maybe there was a chance for them to rebuild what had been lost. But for now, Emma was just happy to know she was safe. She had come through the darkness, and she was ready to face whatever came next.